Hello, everyone, and welcome to the OpenNTF Open Mic with HCL Developers. I'm your host, David Hoblowitz, and with me today I have Graham Akers from the OpenNTF board, as well as, I should say, the chairman of the board, as well as Roberto Bocadoro are here today, and our topic for today is Domino and Notes 14.5. So I would like to introduce our guests for today. First, I wanted to go through some logistics of what's happening, and that is we've got your hosts. We will be recording this so that we can share it later and on our YouTube channel. We're going to ask you to put your questions in the questions box, not in the conversation box or the chat box, but in the questions box, and we'll be pulling the questions from there. I think that we're going to allow people to ask their question if it's a question that's a bit complex. So you just have to put that in there. Let me ask my question, and we will turn on your mic for you when we come to that. And then know that this isn't where you're going to solve your problems if you've got an issue that came up or anything like that, but that this is a Q&A. So don't expect every question to get answered. If they can't answer right away, though, that we can go offline or have you open a support ticket. And another reminder is that you might come up with a great idea of something that happens here, and you should be going and posting that in the AHA forum where these ideas get turned into software. I think that's everything. So now I would like to introduce to you our panel, and I'm going to introduce the lead of our panel today, Scott Favreau. Scott is the Director of Engineering Notes and Domino. Scott has been with HCL for 7 years. In the last 3.5 years, he's been leading the Domino server team, and last year he took on the responsibility of all the Notes clients and other Domino clients. So Scott has over 35 years in developing software products. And Scott, welcome to our stage. And I know you brought a crew with you today, and this is one of the larger crews we've had. So what I think we're going to do, we've agreed to, is that as someone answers the question, go ahead and just introduce yourself real briefly so that we can get through as many questions as we can. So I do not yet see any questions in the forum, and so for our guests that are here, I would say start thinking of those questions, and while you're thinking of them, as you know me, I always have a question, and I love to get that first question in just to kind of get things seated and get you thinking about what you might have. So first, Graham, have I missed anything before I get started? We're good. Great. One of the big things that comes up in my mind is DominoIQ, and that is like the big newest component to all of this. So I do have a question for you guys. Can you give us a high-level description of what's involved in configuring DominoIQ? Because as an admin, I'd like to know this, and configuring it in a Domino domain.
Hi, I'm Nirmala Venkatraman. I'm the tech lead for DominoIQ and several other projects within the Domino development. For the first thing, I think as you want to deploy DominoIQ in your enterprise, in your company, is that you have to decide whether you want to use a local inferencing engine. Domino does have an add-on component called the Llama server that we ship as an add-on on top of 14.5. Or you could point to an external endpoint like Azure OpenAI. If you already have subscription for it, you can configure DominoIQ to talk to an external endpoint like Azure OpenAI. Or if you're just piloting something in small, you can use things like Ollama or VLLM or NVIDIA inferencing server. So DominoIQ, you can configure. First thing you have to decide is whether you want to run everything locally within the Domino server or you want to talk to an external inferencing point. Other than that, the basic configuration for DominoIQ all resides in what is called as a DominoIQ configuration database. So you configure the DominoIQ server with the endpoints that's going to run the inferencing engine. And you also configure the list of models, the LLM models that you're going to use, and the list of commands you're going to have DominoIQ perform. And that's pretty much it. And you enable it all with the directory profile document in your NAB, and which points to the list of Domino IQ servers deployed in your organization.
Well, that's easier than I had originally thought. And on that, I'm just wondering what the difference between using the local versus the remote engine when they're configured.
The main difference is that for the remote case, the inferencing prompt and the data accompanies goes to an external endpoint outside of the Domino IQ server. In the local case, it's all within the Domino IQ server. Once you are an authenticated NRPC user, you talk to the Domino IQ server, nothing leaves the box, right? It's all within Domino, which Domino is known for that kind of an usage. In the remote case, that goes to a inferencing endpoint. Of course, you can protect it via transferring over TLS using an API key, so you have you are a legitimate authorization code to use against an inferencing endpoint. Other than that, there is basically no difference from a client perspective.
So Nirmal, a good thing to state is your Domino data is the key to everything in your world anyway, right? So your Domino data could be in an application, your Domino data could be in your mail file, or it could be other. And the way Domino IQ works is somebody, a client, takes that Domino data and after you've configured the model you're going to use, takes that data and passes it to the Domino IQ engine, and it gets processed and comes back with an intelligent answer, all through Lotus script, correct?
All through Lotus script or Java. So we provide both kind of backend class support for programmers to leverage, and either of it will work. And it's an authenticated NRPC that is used to send that request over to the Domino IQ server and get return the response back to the client. The client can be an agent also, right? So just to differentiate. It can be a notes client, or it can be just an agent that is just updating documents with that response on a database.
And you've brought up enough topic there that we have a question from the audience, and they're asking, does Domino IQ require a GPU? And if so, what GPUs are supported?
Yeah, so Domino IQ, if it's deployed in the local mode, will require a GPU. And in 14.5, we support only the NVIDIA GPUs because, Windows and Linux being the server platforms that the server runs on, we chose NVIDIA being the most popular and widely available for Intel hardware. So you need GPU only when you're running in the local inferencing mode. If you're going remote against, say, Olama or Azure OpenAI or whatever be that third-party inferencing engine, you don't need a GPU on your Domino IQ server.
Okay, thank you, Nirmala. Another question I have, nothing's coming up in the queue, but I have questions. One that I saw that jumped out at me is, and it's almost hidden. It's like you didn't make a big fanfare for this, but in the DBMT has a new parameter. It's the -system DBs, and the documentation says that allows you to compact system databases, which are usually ignored. And I am curious, are you saying that we can then do this while the server is still running? And because there wasn't a lot of Pardon?
No, David, we're not saying you can do that. What we're saying is if we have a list of, you never want to compact your system databases while Domino is running, because that can lead to very bad behavior because the database gets taken offline and it can't be used. So that's why DBMT has actually removed the capability to compact any system databases. And what the S-SD is if you want to take the Domino server down and then you want to run DBMT against the system databases, you can use the -SD switch. So the admin knows that he's specifically doing this, and it's not done by default. Another nice thing I'd like to point out is when the Domino server starts up for the first time in 14.5, it builds an indirect file, Domino Systems db.ind, that has all of the system databases that we are aware of, and it actually pulls some from your Domino configuration as well. So you have that indirect file that you can actually use as an admin to run a maintenance window with Domino server down to compact anything on that particular machine. You could use that indirect file to run upthall against it if you like. You can use it I don't know if FixUp supports IND files. I think it does. I know replication does, but it's a really nice feature that's why we put it in there. And people wanted to have an easy way of compacting their system databases offline.
Thank you for that clarification, John. And yes, then we don't have to know exactly what all those system databases are. Appreciate that. Next, I've got one in the window here. Back to Domino IQ. Can Domino IQ run on IBM I using remote? IBM I with Domino IQ.
No, Domino IQ currently can run only on Windows or Linux.
Windows and Linux.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. No more questions in the queue, so I'm going to come back, and I have a question about the Nodes client. The basic client, is it supported? I see that the basic client is supported again in 14.5. So how do I get there if I don't have the basic install kit?
Sure. I'm Ram Krishnamurthy. I have been with HCL, looks like forever. And I'm responsible for the Nodes client, as well as Designer and XPages overall. To answer your question, yes, 14.5, which is a 64-bit client only, does support basic client on all languages, including English. And the way to invoke the basic client is the supported way is to add the -sa argument into the nodes command line argument, and that will launch the client in basic mode. This is documented in the 14.5 documentation.
Yes, and just to be clear, you install the standard client and then you use command line parameters to run it in basic mode if you like. So you just use the standard install kit for 14.5.
Okay, cool. And I think that was around, this isn't the first one that was around, but now we have it with that parameter.
No, so there is a difference. So I think this came up in the beta forum and I had put a reasonable response. So up till 12.02, there was no issue, and we had basic client kits and standard client kits separately. And starting with 14.0, we only had 64-bit clients.
Okay.
And in that release, we made a decision also not to release basic kits separately. But in 14.0, we do not support the -sa argument because it does not work on all languages. In 14.5, we did a lot of additional work, and now officially in 14.5 only, we support -sa.
Great. Ram, while you're talking, a quick one. What version of Windows is recommended for release 14.5 and Mac OS as well? What are the recommended versions of operating system for 14.5?
Sure. So 14.5 optimally still works on Windows 10. So Windows 11 is also fully supported. Though Windows 11, Microsoft has been releasing a lot of new, I call them the H patches, H1, H2, it just keeps going. And every time they release some big patch, they are now at 23. But every time they release something, they are breaking something, not just us, but others. But we are keeping up with it. So, but Windows 11 is evolving from Microsoft. Windows 10 is very, very stable. So in terms of recommendation, if customers are on Windows 10, you're going to find it very, very stable. But if Windows 11 and you are keeping up with the patches from Microsoft, you might see some instability, but we are working to make sure you don't see those through the Notes client.
Okay, fair. And how about for Mac
Mac, so as of 14.5, we support Sequoia, Sonoma, and Ventura. It works in all those three very well, though I would recommend that Sonoma is your best OS right now. It's very, very stable with high quality and performance. Sequoia is also decent, but I think it is still getting updated by Apple. But personally, I would recommend Sonoma.
Okay. Thank you, Ram. Back to the queue of questions we have from class. Is there a RAG or MCP connection between Domino IQ and a Domino database?
Not yet. We are looking at these technologies for the future releases.
Excellent. We've already answered that next question in the queue. So let me look back to the list of questions I've got here. Some good ones.
Let me just respond to that question so that it's not ambiguous. So 14.5 does support Windows 11. No question about it. Fully supported.
Okay, great. And then, does the Notes client support two-factor authentication? I want to jump on this one. Notes client is two-factor authentication. You have an ID file and a password. But let HCL answer that question. The question is, does the Notes client support two-factor authentication? And I think what you're meaning is where you're using a token or things like that.
I assume that is the question, and currently it does not, but it is in our backlog, and we will try to get that in. If more people are interested, go to AHA and vote and get as many people as you can to vote for it.
Just to add on to what Ram said is that we are also, looking at probably adding OIDC support for the Notes client. If that is the case, then the OIDC provider can enforce, passkeys or TOTP, and then Notes client will automatically get that authenticating through OIDC. So there are multiple ways to solve the problem, and this could be one of the ways.
Excellent. I like to beat this drum because Notes was the first thing out there that had two-factor authentication, and that is you needed a physical device, the ID file, and you needed a password. So that's been there forever in some ways. We just don't think of it in those terms. Domino operating systems. What Windows versions are supported with Domino 14.5 in a parallel to client?
So
John,
that's so this is Kenbo, project lead for Domino Core Services, and I own platforms. That's in our release notes, but Windows 2019, 2022, and 2025 are the current supported OSs for 14.5.
Thank you. And while we're talking about,
I'll repeat what Ram kind of stated is 2025 is fairly new, so they're constantly making updates. And if you Google about it, it's a little bit resource intensive more than 2022. So if we were recommending, I think 2022 is a lot more stable at this point, but we certainly have tested and validated that we will run okay on 2025. But if you were looking for where to go, and I've also found internally upgrading to 2025 from 2022, it's been pretty easy to do based on our own experience internally, just as an FYI.
Yeah, so if you look in the system requirements for 2025, we do mention that you will need more memory. We actually had to double the memory in our test systems for automation, and we had to add CPU cores as well. And if our automation lead was on here, she would tell you that there were a lot of security changes made in 2025 that made us have to change our automation scripts to work around them. So that's something else to look for.
Okay, thank you. And along those lines, speaking of upgrading, for upgrading the Domino server, if you're coming from version 9 or 10 or 11 or any of that, can you go straight to 14.5, or what are the steps?
So L2 has talked about this in the past. We only test in our testing, upgrading 2 releases at a time. So we tested, for example, upgrading 12 to 14 to 14.5. And 12 to 14.5. But we don't do that huge leap from 9 to 14.5. We do it like 2 at a time. So that's what we recommend. Plus, there are so many changes between the different versions of Domino. You really want to look at each one and see what's going to affect you as you make that upgrade.
Okay, and if you're doing 2 at a time, like say you're going from 9 to 11, and then 11 to 14 or 12, and then to 14.5, is it you launch it and then you'll bring it right back down, and then you launch it again and you bring it down? Or
So I think L2 has tested that where they actually start up the server after the upgrade.
So you install an upgrade, then install the next upgrade, and then run it.
Right.
Okay.
And again, I'll state, we've stated this before. Our services team is committed. If you want to work with services, they will upgrade you directly to the latest release and work through any issues you have, so you don't have to bounce around. We're not aware of anything. If you want to be a little bit on the careful side and wanted to do those 2 at a time, go ahead. But you should be able to upgrade directly and address issues if they did come up around. If we lock down a certain API a certain way or certain things that happen. But again, in our internal domain, we're running 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, and 14.5, all interoperable. Just do it in an intelligent way. Do it clustered. So that you can make sure the server's working okay while you got a backup, down level server still running. But it's all feasible. I always call it the many different ways to skin a cat.
The previous question made me think of one that I have long wondered about, and I'm not trying to blindside you, but as far as if you're moving to a new server, like if I'm upgrading a server that's on an old Windows Server 2008 and it's got version 9 on that, the path to get from that to new hardware and new operating system, because there's all those interoperability problems with operating system upgrades as well. Is there a clear path on that is adding that level of we're swapping hardware and we're swapping operating system at the same time we're upgrading Domino?
Right. There's an upgrade cookbook that's out there that's made available. Again, many different ways to skin a cat. What I like to do is I like to bring up the new Windows say a new Windows 2025 server, bring down my old Windows 2009 server, copy my program and data directory and everything over, try and match up all of the drives that are being used. Then I install 14.5 and I bring up the Domino server. I make sure all the IPs and the DNS addresses all matched. I try to use the same ones on the new server that were being used on the old server because the clients know about those IP addresses. And then I usually just bring up the server and it should be good to go. Like I said, having a backup clustered server that's up and running while you're validating this is the best way to go.
Yeah, and see what I do. I don't do as much as Pags does. I tar up my data directory. I move it to a machine. I shut down my old system, and I bring up a new system with the same name and the same configuration, but with the new OS. So the old machine was, 2008. The new one is 2025. I drop my data directory on there, and I install whatever version of Domino I want to move to, and I point it and I say that's my data directory, and it knows not to mess with the data directory. And now I bring up the server running the new version of Domino with my existing data directory.
All right. Can you tell me a little bit more about the Domino license administration in release 14.5? How's that data collected and some things like that?
Sure. So this is Gary Realm. I'm the technical lead for the TCO team. And we have built into Domino 14.5 the basic infrastructure for gathering your license usage going forward. And I could share it, but basically we modeled it to create a dashboard that looks identical, basically, to the DLAO tool that the sales team uses. And the data is automatically collected. You don't have to do anything. All of the servers in your domain, as they are upgraded, now 14.5 is ready to go today for 12.02, that will be in FixPack 7. That will be armed with the new logic, and 14.0 FixPack 5. So the next FixPacks that come down the road will be armed. And those machines will just contribute all the necessary information along with their entitlement tracking information and the authentication information that will all just sort of flow up to your administration server, which will do the aggregation and the computation, right? And so there's nothing that you have to do. It will run automatically once a week, and it will keep history records of every time that it runs, so you'll be able to see the historical number of CCX, CCB licenses that you were attributed to. But currently, if you just have a mix of 14.5 and back level servers, the dashboard will be incomplete, and it will notify you that it's incomplete. It doesn't have all of the information that it needs everywhere. But nothing you have to do. It will create a database on your admin server called Domino DLA, Domino License Administration.nsf. And after the first couple of days you've had your server up and running, you can open that and you'll see information being gathered.
And just to be clear, Gary, there's no phone home. This is a very secure, only your administrators will have access to it. And then you'll be able to decide as a company what you want to do with that data.
Yeah, there's no phone home. And the idea here was just to relieve the administrator of the burden of having to run a client application. The client application, might take hours to run. This runs automatically, and it kind of spoon feeds the data. The data just flows to the admin server. So when the actual engine itself runs, it probably can do, like in our environment, it could do a complete run in under 2 minutes, right? So it kind of spreads the workload out across the servers and has them contributing data. You'll have to look at the dashboard, and we're anxious to hear for feedback. But again, it won't be sort of fully operational until the fixed packs come out on the back level servers.
Thank you, Gary. And while I've got you on the line here on this one, with all of the enhancements about the Domino Auto Update, can you give us kind of a high-level overview of the changes or the enhancements that have come out?
Yeah, I can, but I'm actually going to let Daniel answer that
Okay.
if he's on. Daniel, do you want to take that one?
Yes, thanks, Gary. So, hi, I'm Daniel Nashet. I'm mainly working currently for the TCO team. I worked on Auto Update, for example, and we, as a team, we added first in 14.0, we laid the ground for having Auto Notify to give you information about new versions and also downloads and distribution of software. And with 14.5, we introduced Auto Install for installing releases, fixbacks, interim fixes for Domino, and also distributing AUT-enabled WebKits for the client. We have a full OpenNTF session that we had earlier this year. So if you want to get all the details about Auto Update and the enhancements, so Gary, Dick, and myself did a full-blown session about that. But the main feature is really Auto Install, and also an Auto Install option where we update the Auto Install component for you automatically. That's another small additional highlight, that the software itself, the install software itself, can update it when it's running. You don't have a downtime for that. So that's it, basically.
Thank you, Daniel. Some mixed blessings there. As an admin, I appreciate making my life easier. I also fear that you're working me out of a job. Tell us a little bit more about being able to use Domino as an IODC provider in release 14.5 and what that means. It might be Norma.
Yeah, I will take it. Dave Kern is on vacation this week, so and I'm sure he would have given a fantastic answer, better than mine. So as you would have seen as part of the security improvements over the several releases in both Domino 12 and in 14, we have added the support for Domino as an OIDC registered client, right? So that lets you do both the bearer token authentication and also web login with OIDC, authenticating with external endpoints like Azure AD or Keycloak or any of the external services, right? In 14.5, what Dave and team has added is the support for Domino natively acting as the OIDC provider. So this completes the full OIDC authentication and federation story, where now within the whole Domino product suite, we are now able to act as the identity provider, completely executing on the OIDC stack and not just the client side of the OIDC stack. So the latest versions of, say, Nomad, Verse are all able to authenticating within the Domino directory, serving as the base, and the Domino web server acting as the OIDC provider. So we can now interop both externally and within our own family of product suites. So it completes our federation story, similar to SAML. In the case of SAML, we didn't have Domino acting as a SAML provider, IDP provider, but with OIDC, now we act as both the provider and also as an OAuth client.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you.
is Bob Paganetti. I worked on the Domino security team for a long time. You can also use OIDC tokens to get access into the ID vault, to get access to an ID file to be downloaded to Nomad clients and web clients as well.
Good point. Yeah. And the story doesn't stop here. As Scott is aware, we are trying to get more clients to work with both Domino IDC provider and external, including Nodes client, hopefully, same time and others in the future.
Thank you, Nirmala. Thank you, Bob. And from the previous question, I did get another follow-up question from the audience, and that was regarding the licensing. Can it pull license data across multiple Nodes domains? We have an internal environment and a cross-certified portal domain that I currently have to calculate separately. So that's regarding the licensing.
Right. So this is Gary Rayom again. So the Domino 14.5 requirement for us for building the integrated infrastructure was per domain, as the current DAO tool is. I know that there is an AHA idea out there for doing cross-domain, and I would expect that we will see a requirement to do that. But currently, it is still single domain.
All right, find the AHA idea and vote it up.
We're making great progress on these questions too. I see that there were some DAOS repair enhancements. Can you tell us a little bit more about those and how they'll help me as an admin using DAOS?
Sure. I think I'd actually like to do a demo if that's possible. So there's several different things in repair that are improved, but one of the ones that's very interesting that people might not just sort of get, without being shown a little bit maybe, is you can now enable in your server document on the DAOS tab a feature called automatic repair for DAOS. And what will happen is if DAOS detects that an object, we try to access an object that doesn't exist, it will go and ask all of your cluster mates if they have that object, and if they do, it will repair them silently behind the screen, behind the scenes, right? So I will show you, I have a little discussion database here where you can see this, and I'm going to just create a unique snip. So we have something that doesn't exist. Save it as a file. We'll call it unique. And so we know it's a unique hash, right, that doesn't exist anywhere. And we'll create a new document with that attachment. And I'm not going to compress it. It's already a compressed format. Create it, save it. So now I happen to have 5 Domino servers running on my machine, and this database is replicated to all of them. So if I go and I look, the name of this database is DAOS Repair, except that the client clipped it down to DAOS Repa. So if I go and look at this database, I can see that it has one attachment because I just attached something called unique PNG. I can see that it's in DAOS, and I can see that this is the key for that object right here, okay? So I'm just going to update my my little test here. So now if I go and pick the path for that attachment, I can actually go to a command window and I can delete it on disk. Well, first I'll show you that it exists on disk. So that's the attachment that we just created. So now I'll delete it. So now if I'm in my client application and I'm opening that document and I try to view it, it gives me the file does not exist, could not save to file, which is a pretty sad situation. If I go and look at the Fender console, the server that I'm looking at, it found that that was missing and it has repaired it while we were looking at it. So now if I go in and view it, there it is. That's the screenshot that we just captured, right? So it dynamically behind the scenes, when you run resync, when you demand an object, it will go off and bring it back, pretty quickly. That was a small attachment, obviously, right? So the other thing that's important to know is we have a feature called cluster symmetry, which keeps databases in sync across servers in a cluster. This is not related to that feature directly. This works for all NLOs, whether you're in a monitored database or not a monitored database. So every single NLO in your system now has the ability to go off and heal itself dynamically from a cluster mate. So that's pretty cool. I like that.
No, Gary, that I could have used this 2 weeks ago. This is fantastic. And let me ask, why would you not turn this on? Because you have the option to turn it on. Why would you not turn it on? Is there a case?
Yeah, I don't really know. When we bring out new functionality, we generally, I would leave it on, I guess. You could have situations where if you lost an entire volume and you brought back some databases from a restore, that you would be in a situation, what I call like a panic situation, where every database would be missing an NLO or something like that. It might not be the most, you might want to turn it off while you restore from backup, that kind of thing, to bring your server up to, but it's really best suited toward the onesie twosie problems. Also though, if it were to open an attachment and detect that the attachment were corrupted, like something had happened to the disk image or the disk file, it would also trigger this repair capability. So again, pretty cool.
So Gary, does this feed into any kind of an automatic DAOS repair that could run once a day or something like that without needing the cluster symmetry?
Yeah, well, again, it's not related to cluster symmetry. I think that's a point of confusion, right? You just enable this automatic repair and it will run. Right now, if you were to run a resync, which sort of looks at every object in the universe, it would detect missing objects and bring them back. You also can tell DAOS Mugger repair space a specific NLO and it will bring it back on demand, or you can tell DAOS Mugger repair and the name of a database, and it will look at every single DAOS object used by that database, verify that it has it on disk, and bring it back if it doesn't exist. So you have a lot of granularity. You could run a program document, Nirmala, that would kind of achieve that kind of thing, but this is intended to be, sort of an on-demand dynamic healing thing. And again, a resync will do them all, any missing NLOs if you happen to have any. So if you have systems that get a little out of kilter because particularly, you bring back, you restore a copy of a database from some time ago, and maybe you don't want to, you can just run the repair of that database and see, it might just find all of the missing, the attachments needed by that database on cluster mates and save you the hassle of restoring. That's kind of your choice, right? There's one other thing that I didn't show, which I could show, but I don't want to hog up too much time, which is that in my case where I'm running the 5 servers, I'm running 3 14.5 servers, a 12 server, 14.0 server, and the different servers have different encryption configurations, right? So the donor server, the one that gives us the NLO, does not have to have the same encryption, the same shared encryption keys. We will read it from the donor and re-encrypt it to the specification or the configuration of the target server automatically. So it really is quite a useful little feature.
Oh, Gary, that's great. I have a massive database I could have used that for just a couple of weeks ago. There is a question in the queue that aligns with this, a DAOS repair. Why not try to repair it in the background and present the error message only when the repair failed?
Yeah, that's a really great suggestion. I've noted that, but the reason is because even though in my demo the repair happened really quickly, if you had a, I don't know, maybe a 2 gig attachment, and you're in the New York office and the attachment, you have a cluster mate in Los Angeles or something, right? If you use the United States example, that could happen. It could take, a number of seconds to happen, and there's a single threaded repair queue, so that in theory you could have, several things stacked up waiting to be repaired, that kind of thing, and the client will time out. And so, I'd love to do that. Sort of, we could try to implement that, saying, if you can get it done before the Turan will time out, you should give it a shot. And worst case is that you don't want the client to come back and say server's not responding or that kind of thing, right? So it's a little bit of a, cat and mouse game there, but it's a good suggestion. We could maybe try to tune that up a little.
You said it's single threaded, so is there a possibility that this might be multi-threaded? Because if you're doing a restore of a server, that might be a little bit more intensive.
Right. So we have a variety of different mechanisms within DAOS that will try to do these repairs. For example, like a resync, which is multi-threaded. This particular, again, the intention of this particular thing was sort of a one-offy minor thing. So we'd have to go back and look at that. I think what we would say is maybe we could try to work that through an AHA or an idea with the product management team to see what's most useful. We just sort of came up with this because it was something that was useful for us internally. And so, how it works and what the parameters are and how it best works for customers, that's just the information we need, right? So send it to us.
Great. Thank you, Gary.
If
you ever want to test it against a multi-terabyte database, let me know. I have one. Is there a new ODS with release 14.5?
There's not. No.
Go ahead.
There's nothing. No, we didn't add any functionality that would require a new on-disk structure. So no.
Okay. I know I saw somewhere in a chat forum recently someone was talking about it had the 56 ODS or something like that. That was they had.
I'll speak to that. It's a little confusing in the documentation, and I've talked to our doc writer, and we're fixing that to make it clear that the maximum ODS is for 14.5 is ODS 55. There's a couple of we tried to have some pre-release stuff looking at ODS 56 that kind of got exposed in a couple of edge cases that we're going to be fixing. But the way to get the max ODS is still to use create_R12_database=1. That will give you the maximum ODS 55, which is what we'd like you to be running. There is no create_R14_database= that you'll be using. So we'll make sure that's clear in the documentation as well. Create_R12_database=1 is the max you should be using.
Thank you, John. I'm still not seeing more questions in the queue. We've got a large audience. I appreciate you giving me all the airtime for these questions, but I would love to hear your questions in here too. I'll ask the next question. What Java versions did you upgrade to in Domino release 14.5?
So with 14.5, we've upgraded to Java 21 LTS. I believe the exact version is 21.0.6.
Caveat, IBM now supports Java 17 in 14.5, and it is required to have Java 17. So we upgraded from Java 8 to 17. At the time, IBM still did not support 21. The latest IBM i 7.6 has 21. So we are looking at, in a future release going to 21. But the problem is we still want to support running on IBM i 7.4 and 7.5. And it looks like IBM is not pushing 21 back to those releases. So it'll be tough if we want to try and do both versions, 17 and 21 support, because we don't ship the JVM on IBM i, we use what is on the machine. So if you're coding Java to work across all platforms, keep that in mind that IBM i is 17, not 21.
Great. Thank you, Ken. Well, I'm going to switch gears over to the admin client because I've got a question about PIRC. And John, you and I talked about this, gosh, I don't remember, but it was back in the Meet the Developers Lab. The PIRC, I wanted things to not replicate anytime if they had been really old. So now there's a column in the admin client on PIRC. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Mark, you want to take it?
Yeah, I can answer that question. My name is Mark.
There you go, Mark. Thanks.
Yeah. I work on the Domino administration. I also work on the Domino IQ feature with Gordon and Norman and the rest of the team for 14.5. So, so the PIRC feature is, as you said, to prevent if you restore an old database that has old deleted stubs in the past. If you don't have PIRC enabled, that could cause a replication storm that would then, replicate all those deletion stubs around your environment, which obviously isn't a good thing. So we actually added 3 new columns to the files panel in 14.5. We did PIRC, we did DAOS tier 2, and we also added the large summary flag. So all those 3 columns are now added into the admin client in the files panel. You go in the admin files preferences, and you can pick which ones you want in the order that you want. And also with the DAOS tier 2, we also updated the index tool in the admin client so that you could do a multi-selected databases, and you can pick the DAOS tier 2 option to create that index as well. So a bunch of little tweaks. Speaking of OIDC, actually, we also did something we haven't done in a long time. We updated the SNMP MIB in 14.5. So we took all the old stats out that were obsolete, and we added new ones in, including ones for OIDC, passkey, and TOTP. So if you do use SNMP, there's just some additional information in there for you.
Okay. Well, I see our designer crowd has been a little underrepresented in the questions so far, but I've got one in here now.
Let me say one more thing about the purge interval replication control, because in our development environment, just think you backed up a NAB 2 years ago, and somebody has it offline or in a different directory, and you've deleted users, you've updated server records, or decommissioned things. And all of a sudden, somebody brings that name and address book back online in the environment somehow. All of those documents that you removed and now the deletion stubs are purged out of the current replicas, they all come flowing back in unless you have this setting set. So, I do it every time I bring a new server online. The first thing I go into the name and address book and I make sure PIRC is enabled in your replication settings. But it makes it a lot easier. As an admin, I can go into the files panel now and I can quickly see on that server, which databases have that setting enabled. So I can keep an eye on things. And when I spot something that's it's not enabled where I want it, I can quickly set it. So I really appreciate Scott and team of adding that column to the admin panel.
Me too. Thank you, John. For our designers in the audience, I'm being asked by Doug, is there anything new in Domino Designer Client 14.5? Probably not, no?
Of course there is.
Of course there is.
Of course. It's one of the biggest. So what 14.5 has done is we have upgraded not only Java to Java 21, we have upgraded Eclipse to Eclipse 4.3, which is what the designer client is based off. What Eclipse 4.3 now allows designer to do is all of you can now start using Eclipse based code assist. So there are AI, so Eclipse 4.3 now supports
one correction, sorry, this is Eclipse 4.30.
Yeah, 3.0. So there are third-party Eclipse plugins out there, including IBM Watson code assist. So what if you install those along with Designer and you start programming in Java, it'll complete all your code. You can start writing Java agents very quickly with code assist. So now Domino Designer is AI powered. We don't ship all the Eclipse plugins which assist with code, but we have made sure that the Domino Designer IDE, if customers install those add-ons, it works correctly. So try it out and let us know how quickly you can now write Java agents without writing too much code. It will just complete it for you. And there are a lot of such assist tools. IBM Watson is one of them, but Copilot is another one, which is a natively Eclipse grown code assist tool, Copilot. That is fully tested with what we did. So we have tested Copilot with Domino Designer 14.5 and it works. We don't ship Copilot by default with the product, but you can just download it and add it on to the Designer IDE. So that is a big enhancement in 14.5. The second thing we have done is we have updated the rich text editor, which was CK editor in 14.0 with a much more feature-rich editor called Tiny MCE. So now in Designer, you can, when you start using the rich text editor, you can Tiny MCE will be the option. And we have made sure that not only it allows customers and developers to use the new TinyMC features, but all existing features which we were supporting with CK Editor continues to work. We already have a customer case where there was some issue with adding custom plugins. So we are looking into that to make sure that is fully functional, but try it out and let us know how TinyMCE is working with Designer 14.5. And the third thing which I mentioned before, which is Java 21. So not only Java 21 is the runtime version for 14.5, it's also compile time version. What that means is that in Domino Designer, while you are writing Java agents, you can use Java 21 syntax, which is much, much superior to previous versions, and add all those new capabilities like templates and stuff like that into your Java code. And so Designer is now like state of the art with in terms of Java.
Yeah, but I hate to rain on it. Just keep in
Yes, sir.
mind if you create any Java agents and you have an IBM I machine, it's Java 17, so it can't run Java 21 features. So if you write an Java agent that's going to run on your server, your lowest common denominator has to be considered. Like I said, we're going to try and get to 21 now that IBM officially supports it, but we're not there in 14.5. We're still 17.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Ron? So with the new designer and with Domino IQ, can it turn me back into a developer?
Well, it's not only that seasoned developers, but even developers who are just becoming developers with Designer IDE, the code assist tools is going to just complete most of your code. So give it a shot and see how it works.
I will. I definitely will. I just won't put it in production. All right, so I have another question. This is while we're talking about Domino IQ, you've got the summarize feature. And can you kind of tell us a little bit more about that with the new template, the summarize feature with Domino IQ? Who would like that?
Yeah, so that actually is one of the best improvements in 14.5 in Notes is uh, if you are running the Notes 14.5 client along with the Notes 14.5 mail template, and you open up an email under the more drop down, you will see a choice called summarize. That will only show up if you have two things done. One is you have set up Domino IQ and configured it. And the second piece is while you are configuring it, you have used the default actions list, which is shipped with the product, also set up during your configuration steps. If you do both of those, and the default actions are two actions which we ship, summarize and reply with DominoIQ. Those will get configured automatically if you just use the default DominoIQ config DB. Once these two things are done and you start the Notes client, you will see the summarize option under the More dropdown and DominoIQ reply under the reply dropdown. What the summarize does is, say if you have just one email, or you have plenty of responses to that email, which becomes a huge thread, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to open up that email and read the latest response usually, but then you have no idea what this person is saying because you lost the entire context. And instead of going through the entire twisties of your email and looking at what everybody is saying, you don't have to do anything anymore. You just hit the summarize button and it will show up, and hopefully you are running GPU on your Domino IQ setup, which is NVIDIA. Then within milliseconds, you will see a summarize dialog which shows up and summarizes the entire thread in about 10 or 12 lines. And you read that and you get context. Oh, this is what this thread is about. Then when you read the latest response, it will start making sense now. So that's what summarize does. And not only this is a great feature, but you can open up the mail template and look at the code. It's Lotus script code. So it is also a very good example of how you all can start writing your own actions based on how that was implemented. And it is all purely Lotus script code using Lotus script bindings to the DominoIQ APIs. Similarly, so we didn't want to just do one action because it might look like a fluke. So we wanted to do one more, which is DominoIQ reply. So many times when you are replying, you're getting emails, it's like some of them are like, didn't I respond this already? Why are these people asking me the same thing? It's like, I get that all the time. Ugh, Notes, just respond this for me. So what I used to think like that 10 years ago, you can't just Notes respond to me. I already know what the response is. It should be knowing this by now. Well, now it will. So you just click the DominoIQ reply choice and it will create a reply for you based on the thread previously as to what your response should look like. Except it won't put the signature. So if you have a signature in preference already set up, it won't override that. So that will still show up. And above that, it will show a drafted response. Obviously, it won't send it for you. You can now read the response, tweak it if you think it needs some tweaking, and then hit the send button. So it really works well for certain pre-canned responses. So if I've tried it, many responses, like anything which is like pre-canned response you have done before, send me, is this a bug? Is this already fixed? Yeah, yes, no. All those are just works like you don't have to type anything, you just hit send and it's done. So try it out. Again, that's also a good example of how to write a DominoIQ action. So these two IQ actions or AI actions are now available in Notes 14.5. And
We've
we are
got a
not going to
couple.
stop here. So as we move forward,
Okay.
we will try to do this in other areas as well as not just mail, in other areas like team rooms and discussions.
So there was a follow-up question in the chat on our main prod server is an IBM I. Can I set up a secondary Linux server for DominoIQ? Will my users be able to use DominoIQ from a mail file on the IBM I server?
Yes, that would work.
That would work. Cool. Rom, I'll give you a break. I have more questions for you, but I'm going to switch gears a little bit to XPages. And I think somebody here can tell me about anything new and exciting in XPages. Or is it the same old?
Sure. Hi all, this is Ishfaq Bhagat. I am working on Notes and Domino technologies since about 2005. And in my recent role, I've been working on the Expediter platform and the Eclipse platform and Domino Designer and XPages mainly. So coming to XPages, one of the things that Ram discussed earlier was the upgrading of the CK editor to TinyMCE. So that's one of the main things for XPages, which works in the browser and in the Notes client, which is XPages in the client, or the Xpink feature as we know it. And the other thing that has been updated is the Dojo library. So the Dojo library was 1.9.7, and that's now upgraded to Dojo 1.17.3. Then we've also done more work in XPINC, which is the embedded browser, which is used for rendering XPages applications in the client. That now uses the Microsoft Edge browser. So there are many newer Edge-related capabilities that you get in XPINC applications. So Microsoft Edge on Windows, and on Mac OS, it will use the Safari or the WebKit browser. And the other place where we've done a lot of improvements or added support for is the enabling of CSP, or content security policy, for XPages applications. And now this can be enabled for an XPages application, and the XPages renderers will take care of generating HTML code which is CSP compliant. So that was a big ask from customers for a while, and that's now available in Domino 14.5.
Just to add what just Ishfaq said, for the CSP one is a big deal. There is a tech note out there, so customers please look out for the tech note. It describes how to enable your XPage app for CSP compliance, and if you are trying to use advanced features in XPages, there are some caveats, so please look at that document. And if you want pure CSP compliance now, we support it, but with the caveats in that tech note. There was a lot of work done, so we are really proud of this effort.
Thank you, Rom. So another question I have here. Before you had Android, before you had iPads and iPhones, we had the Notes client workspace. Are there any improvements that you'd like to tell us about in 14.5 on that workspace?
Oh yeah, thanks for, you are good. You know how to hit the right buttons.
I do.
Yes, workspace, which is a very highly used area of the Notes client. Throughout the years, we have been making good improvements, but one of the good improvements in 14.5 is actually in workspace. So typically in workspace, you have like hundreds of chiclets. And when you're very busy in your Notes client and you're trying to open something and you know the first few letters, but you can't find the chiclet, and you keep scrolling through and figuring out where the chiclet is to open it, you no longer have to do any of that. There are two quick ways now. Right in the workspace, right at the top, there's a search bar. You just type in the first three. Let me actually show it to you. Maybe I shouldn't because it has my own personal databases. But as you start typing and hit return, you will get the chiclets which match those characters. And you just find the one you, so there'll be like 3 or 4. If you just typed 3 characters and there are say 3 hits, it will show you those 3 chiclets and you can just open them up. But many of the times you find yourself, you're not even in the workspace. You are responding to some email or you are responding to some chat in same time, and somebody is asking you something which is actually somewhere in some notes database and you don't know where it is. You just go to the global search center at the top of your notes client and pick workspace as your choice and start typing those 3 characters of the database. And it'll open it for you. It'll give you, if there are more, it'll give you the 3 choices and you can just pick the one which you want to open. If it just finds one, it'll just open it for you. No more, you don't even have to switch to workspace tab anymore. It's right there.
So Ram, I've got a screenshot here of workspace search. So this is my workspace. This is a test page on my workspace. And if I were to type in test on the top here in the search bar, you would see that it's found all the test databases on this page, but it also shows me on any other workspace tabs how many are found on the other pages. So I can instantly find the thing I'm looking for. It's a really cool feature. I'm so pleased that Ram managed and the team managed to get this one in, because it's the one feature I use in 14.5 the most at the moment. So I actually personally love this particular feature. So use it every day almost.
And can I ask, does it open the database or does it take me to that icon on the workspace? So I'll know where it is next time.
In this workspace search, as Ram said, it shows you where the icons are that match that criteria. If you were to use the search bar at the top here, there's an option for workspace now. And if you were to find something there and click on it, it will take you straight to that database and open it up for you.
Cool.
So those 2 search paradigms give you the same results, but give you 2 different experiences as to whether you open it or whether you have to click on it. You still have to click on it somewhere, right, to open it.
Wow, that is cool. Was there more? This is what you wanted to share with us on the workspace.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. He had a test database, which I didn't want to share my personal stuff. So.
By the way, Tim, since I've got you on the line, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we're missing that hasn't been already covered?
Workspace search is the thing I use the most, because it's the thing as an end user I get to use on a daily basis. There's a whole bunch of things. I mean, as you can see across the board, there's been improvements in every space, whether that's, repairing DAOS or making sure your databases don't replicate database delete or replication stubs, or whether it's, in Admin Central, or, trying to make sure that you understand the licenses that you're using. Across the board, we've been improving things. Domino IQ is obviously the poster child for 14.5. And that's great. I think companies being able to keep their data inside their data boundary is fantastic. When Thomas and I were discussing Domino IQ at the very beginning of the ideas of what 14.5 might be, we didn't know about Domino IQ when we first started about 14.5. It came up, I don't know, halfway through last year, really, when I did a customer visit, and we were talking to one of the CSE team about, what customers want. And he said, oh, well, what about this? You can run a local Llama server and I can do stuff from Domino using the REST API and make it talk to the local Llama server. And Thomas and I were like, oh, that's clever. So then that got taken into Thomas's remit and turned into the feature that became the poster child for the release. But, everything that we've done is all about making everyone's lives that little bit better, all the way down to, as Ram says, the Eclipse updates and the Java updates. The whole thing is centered around what customers need and what customers ask us for in AHA. So is there one thing? No. Is there something we've forgotten? Maybe, because there's so much that goes into a release. It's impossible to be able to tell you everything.
Hey, David, can you ask about directory synchronization and the changes that Michael Bryan made? Because he's sitting here foaming at the mouth to speak about it.
I would love to ask about directory synchronization. In fact, why don't you just tell us about directory synchronization? You knew I had a question in here on that, didn't you, John? Very good.
Okay. Okay, yeah, Michael Bryan the lead on directory and full text, and I'm kind of the point man now on notes indexing facility and NSF. And I've had a history of both the Domino and the client, and I worked on Smart Cloud Notes for a while. But so in 14.5, we continued with our tighter Active Directory integration. We're kind of completing that, where we've added about 10 new options in the DirSync task, where we're syncing names from the Active Directory into our directory, initially as with the option of just having contacts there for mailing purposes, but then the ability to then register those users, and then those two records are inextricably linked forever. But so we've had some AHA requests, and we've had some customer requests for options. And I'll just go through the 10 options. The first one is we've got now if you have enabled DirSync and you're an IMAP user, you can, and that's how you're using that API to access your mail file. You can use your Active Directory credentials for that now. So you can authenticate and read your mail file. You couldn't do that before because the two records aren't linked. So that's one thing. And then another one is Active Directory has a notion of disabled users. Users can be disabled. They're not deleted. They're just disabled. And we've had a request for it's a valid use case. Customers will disable a user. Maybe they go on a sabbatical or whatever, and for some reason they still sync. And the customer, we've heard feedback from the customer that they don't want those syncing while they're disabled. So that's another option. And a big one is that now in 14.5, there's a two-way sync. We can actually sync back to the Active Directory. And what we're syncing there is the note's distinguished name goes back into into a designated field that the customer chooses. So we store it there. And that's important for because that completes the circuit in directory assistance. You can specify the attribute you want to use as the distinguished name, so that when you authenticate via Active Directory, your Active Directory credentials, you can then be viewed in Domino as the Domino user with their notes distinguished name. So that's on all the ACLs and everything. So previous to 14.5, you needed a third party. You had to get a third party to do all that synchronization. So that's a big one. And then we've also added an option to add the LDAP, the Active Directory LDAP distinguished name, as a full name alias. So for any APIs, any programs, you can find the Active Directory distinguished name by a name lookup or any of our APIs. You can find the user in the Domino record, which is basically an extension of the Active Directory. That makes it an extension of the Active Directory user. And then another thing is that so Active Directory has two group types. They have security groups and distribution groups, and that maps neatly to our groups of mail only and security only. So that maps nice and neat, except for the fact that many of our customers use multi-purpose because they want the same group they want to mail to that same group that they're using for ACLs. And it's a valid use case. So in 14.5, if they check that box, that then we will override, map it into our secure only group or access only group, and we will make it multi-purpose. And for the distribution group, which went to mail only, we can also do that, but in that case, we're going to be storing the LDAP distinguished name in there, so it can be used for both purposes. And it uses the other option implicitly to store the LDAP distinguished name as an alias, so we can find the email address. Because currently now it just stores the email address in our mail only groups. And then there's and then something new too is that when an Active Directory administrator deletes a user, the Domino administrator has no idea that it's been deleted. We do sever the link between the Active Directory and the Domino directory, but the Domino administrator doesn't know about that. So now we're queuing up an admin P request for the Domino administrator to either delete the user or not, but just to let them know that user is gone from the corporate directory, the Active Directory.
You have that all on a whiteboard, I can tell. You've got like a big list there, don't you?
I do, and I won't go through the rest. There's 3 or 4 more, but yeah.
But there's a lot. Well, definitely, and I presume that's in the documentation, which I haven't even gotten that far in the documentation yet. So great.
It's all in the documentation.
Thank you. And John, thank you for bringing up that point for me. By the way, Tim, when you mentioned, I want to tell you that from the outside looking in, I've been really happy with all of the work that you guys have been doing. This is just like it's refreshing. It's like spring air. So we appreciate.
Oh, it's not me, Dave. It's all the other people you see around here. It's the developers, the people who do the real work, right?
Yes. Which I wanted to segue because I don't have any more questions in the queue. I think I've gone through all of my questions. So I wanted to bring it back and give Scott, if there is anything you wanted to kind of wrap up, put a bow on this for 14.5 with all the work you teams have done. Is there anything you wanted to kind of share with us before we call it a day?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, David. And thanks for everyone who attended. Thank you to my team. First, for my team, great job. I've always been impressed with the 3.5 years we worked together, the passion everybody has for the product still. And, I'm the newbie to the product, but many of the people have, 20 plus years experience, very passionate, and they do excellent work. So, I just try to stay out of their way, frankly, but thanks, team, for all the hard work that you've done in delivering some great features and more coming in the future. To the folks who attended the webinar, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to listen to some of the new features. Keep the suggestions coming. We'll get in whatever we can. And a special shout out, if there's anyone who's attending the webinar who participated in the early access program, thank you. You help make the product better. We spend a lot of time looking at the forums, taking the feedback to heart, and I think it makes a much better product as a result of that. If you're not aware of the early access programs, please reach out because we offer them every time, and we make the releases available early, and we do take the feedback very seriously. The last thing I'll say, David, is we talked about all the very visible features, and even Tim said, hey, there's so many things going on in the release. For a product of the scope of Domino and Notes, there's a lot of work behind the scenes too, making sure we're up to date on all the security issues, all the bug fixes that we get reported either from the field or what we find internally. There's a lot of work that goes into every single release. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. I know in the fix list database, it was a huge number for the 14.5 case. So thank you all at HCL for spending the time with us with OpenNTF, helping us to bring our users, our community together and and really keeping up in the times with the software.
Julian had one last question in the chat about.
Oh, did something? Oh, all right, hold on. Julian Robinson, yes.
When does the Notes 15 beta start? And I don't know if Scott or Tim can say what we're calling the next release, but we're starting already. We started internally, but they may be able to say something about that.
Do you want me to take this, Scott?
Sure thing, Tim.
Okay. So we're not going to be calling it 15. Just so you're all aware, the version number will be 14.5.1. And we are looking to do a beta as early as December, and we'll do a couple of refreshes after that. And that's all I'm going to tell you for now. Not give too much away, but 14.5.1, and we're looking to do the first beta in December.
So I wanted to just kind of put a bow on this, bring it together. Thank you for all of you for following OpenNTF. And if you're not already, please join our channel on Discord. And we've got the link. I think you can get that from our website anyway, openntf.org. Yep. And Graham, is there anything I'm missing?
Nope, this is good.
All right. Well, as our chair, we appreciate the work that you've done in your role as the chair as well. If there's nothing else, thank you all for coming. Do remember the next time we have this, we're doing this once a month. And so I do not know what our subject is for next month, but someone's going to tell me soon enough. So unless there's more, I'll say everybody have a great day. And we look forward to seeing all of you and some of the developers here on the crew. Thank you for attending, and we look to see you again next month.